Okay, so yesterday we got the full-on reveal of Project Luminous from Lucasfilm. We know the High Republic era is coming very, very, very soon, and it's going to be a worldwide publishing initiative. But the question becomes, what does it have to do with China? Well, I'm going to break it down for you right now. Hey everyone, Matt Jarbo here. So, yesterday Project Luminous had its announcement, its big reveal, and we got to take a look at this artwork coming in from the High Republic era, giving us an idea of what to expect when the Jedi are at their absolute peak, coming in 200 years before the events of A New Hope. And that's entirely cool. I'm actually really excited to see what kind of stories we're going to get told, and I did do a video breaking down everything we know about it so far. But as I was talking about before, what does any of this have to do with China, considering China wasn't mentioned at all yesterday? Well, it actually has a lot to do with the Middle Kingdom, because what they want to do is find a way to keep these kind of headlines from happening. Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker is expected to flop at the box office in China. Now, we know that this is not an uncommon headline. Hell, even the first bulletin points from the article here say, Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker is expected to flop in China. The Star Wars franchise has struggled in China with each movie, and in the Disney era earning less than the previous one. The Rise of Skywalker is expected to have a big opening domestically this weekend, despite some of the worst reviews in the franchise, but still earn less than The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. And the thing is, as much as a fan as I am of The Rise of Skywalker, there is absolutely no denying any of those bulletin points. It is absolutely true. The movie flopped in China. The movie did well domestically here, but it did not meet the same levels that The Force Awakens did or The Last Jedi did by a pretty decently sized large margin. And when you think about Star Wars as a worldwide event, when you think about Star Wars as a worldwide pop culture brand, and it's having trouble landing in one of the biggest markets that's out there, this would be China, and it doesn't do as much better in the rest of the world than some of the other films Disney has spent less money on in 2019 alone, and then the question becomes, well, what happens next? And that, of course, obviously, is going to be here. This publishing initiative, or this publishing campaign, the High Republic, launching August 25th in 2020, right before the reveal, or right, I think, during Star Wars Celebration in Anaheim. And it really does seem like a pretty fascinating thing. Coming over here to Wikipedia, they say that the High Republic era was a period of time approximately centered around 232 BBY that saw greatly expanded Jedi activity throughout the galaxy. And this is whole new territory, right? This is a whole new territory, and it basically kind of boils down to being the expanded universe 2.0. And that has a lot of people really upset at it, because we know that back in I think it was like 2014 or 2012, they decided to kill off the expanded universe. I mean, they turned it into Star Wars Legends, saying here that Star Wars Legends, formerly known as the expanded universe, encompasses every one of the licensed fictional background stories of the Star Wars universe outside of the 6 original films produced by George Lucas, that was created before April 25th, 2014. And that is a big deal, right? Because a lot of people loved those stories, and they like the comics, and they like the Thrawn trilogy. And we know in some aspects they have taken characters like General Thrawn out of the EU and put him into Star Wars Rebels, and people really, really, really love that. Even in The Force Awakens, there were elements of the EU that JJ and Lawrence Kasdan took as a way to kind of keep the EU people involved, mostly because I think J.J. Abrams actually happens to be a pretty big people pleaser. I think he wants to please everybody, which is, I think, what he tried to do with The Rise of Skywalker, and it didn't actually end up pleasing a lot of people. That is just a sad reality. But again, I want to reiterate here, China is going to be the key focus, right? We know that the movies do well in Western culture. We know that they haven't been able to tackle China yet. So why not release a whole new series of books that are going to be set way before the prequel series, way at the height of the Jedi, in order to then try to get a new audience interested in past Star Wars? Now, personally, I think they should have focused a couple hundred years after the events of The Rise of Skywalker, after the end of the Skywalker saga, just to give us a whole new world, a whole fresh world without needing to rely on nostalgia. But really, the only character that we're going to maybe meet in the High Republic is going to be Yoda, and that's fine with me, to be honest with you. I think after the whole Baby Yoda phenomenon, that's probably what they want to capitalize on that. But I want to draw your attention to an article that popped up on Variety from back in October of last year, and I covered this, but it didn't get a lot of play. It says here, Disney and Tencent to put out new Chinese Star Wars story. Oh, that's interesting, right? That's pretty fascinating. Now, pay attention to what they say here, and I'm going to apply it to the High Republic as well, and I think you're going to be really surprised at what's going on. So it says, in an attempt to cultivate a grassroots enthusiasm campaign for a franchise that has not yet managed to find a strong foothold in the world's second largest film market, Disney will make the 40 Star Wars novels available in Chinese for the first time on Tencent's digital reading platform at no cost. The two companies also tapped a popular Chinese internet novelist who goes by the name His Majesty the King to write a new authentic Star Wars story with Chinese characteristics. It will bring in Chinese elements and unique Chinese storytelling methods, according to the statement. One of the author's previous books was adapted by Tencent into a 2016 anime series, and they say here that we hope we can find more Chinese readers to engage with Star Wars stories and help the force of Star Wars shine bright in China. China Literature CEO Wu Wenhu told reporters. A representative from Disney said the company looked forward to putting the vast world of Star Wars universe at the fingertips of the Chinese consumers. So we can kind of see here this new publishing initiative that is going to be translated in a multitude of different languages, coming out right around the time, or a little less than a year after they announced this grassroots initiative to try to get Star Wars popular in China. And the video I did on this talked about how they would be using the grassroots movement to try to build up a fan base in China. Because check this out, this is a true number. Over 419 million Chinese individuals read ebooks every single month. It's over 400 million people. Now, there are over 619 million active online gamers in China every single month, and we know how the gaming industry absolutely loves to dive into that marketplace, and we've seen a vast change in some of the Western practices because they don't want to have to redesign the game from multiple outlets, and so, we kind of get hosed, but the sheer population of gamers and how much money is coming out of the Middle Kingdom. As this article from Variety said, it's the second largest film market. We know the next movie drops in December 2022. That gives us just over 3 years. Not us, but I say that as Disney. Gives Disney just over 3 years, and a little bit less than that. Let's go with maybe 2.5 years to develop an actual grassroots campaign in China in order to help people or to push people to the movies in order to go and see what comes next. Now, let's apply that to the High Republic. So the High Republic is not just one phase. It's not just a few books, an adult novel, a couple young adult novels, and some kids' books and comics. This is going to be the first phase of a long-term, you could almost argue an MCU-esque type experience, where they're going to be putting out all of these stories that come from all of these different writers who all worked together in order to tell this massive story that can find itself resonating with fans of different ages and different backgrounds all over the world. Now, the Chinese are also going to be getting these books, and I guarantee you whatever His Majesty the King is writing, whatever he's writing will guaranteed have something to do with this time period. It's going to be dealing with a Chinese Jedi and Chinese characteristics around the same time that they're fighting the Nihil in whatever's going on during the 200 years before the prequel series, because it makes sense to go backwards than it does to go forwards, financially speaking. So hear me out. They go backwards on this front, right? They go back 200 years. They get His Majesty the King and other online novelists, because they're going to do that. They're going to write all these different novels. That's going to be building up, and leading into the prequel trilogy, which will then be on probably Disney Plus in China. That will then lead into having fans who understand that universe. And then those people can go and watch the original trilogy, getting more of that insight, more of that intel. And then those people will then also want to reach out and find all these new books that they were given access to before that maybe they didn't understand the full context of. So now you're getting more people into the mix, and then they're going to watch the sequel trilogy and maybe whatever else, Mandalorian, Star Wars Resistance, Star Wars Rebels, Star Wars Clone Wars. You're starting to see the synergistic brand here, the brand work at play, because this is what Disney does. They think about ways in order to be able to bring it all together. They've been unable to crack China. So 200 years before the events of the Phantom Menace was clearly created as a way to get Chinese people into Star Wars with enough leeway time or enough lead-in time to build up to the Phantom Menace. So whatever comes next out of the High Republic, out of Disney, is going to be really, really fascinating. And I don't know about you, but I'm excited to learn more because I always like to see these things play out. I always like to learn how these stories interconnect. And I think that over the course of the past couple of years, Lucasfilm has kind of learned from its mistakes, not only by canceling the EU, which, look, I know all they have to do at this point is come back and just say, it's all canon. But the truth of the matter is, even Lucas never made it canon. Lucas never cared enough about it to make it canon. He just liked cashing all the licensing checks. That's kind of true, unfortunately. So they're taking the concept of that and they're reworking it into an earlier era in order to make it all their own, that will still have some clear ties to not only the prequel trilogy and the OT and the sequel trilogy, but also to what's going to be coming out of China. And that is honestly very interesting. We'll have to wait and see how it plays out. I don't know if it's going to be good. I don't know if it's going to be bad. We'll know in August when the books start to drop or when the Chinese stories start to come out and we can at least get a plot detail or a plot synopsis, or maybe it will be translated into English and I can sit down and I can read it. But either way, I do want to hear you guys' thoughts on this one. I know a lot of you out there probably aren't going to like this information and you're probably going to sit there and just go, it's all terrible garbage. But I think it's worth looking at from the perspective of just storytelling, right? And not really apply identity politics to it just yet, because we don't know if it's there. All we know at this point is that they're working on something and they're trying to find a way to bring in China and also bring in new audiences with this new story series. And again, I think it's going to be pretty fascinating to see where it goes. And if it's terrible, trust me, I will tell you if it's terrible. But in the meantime, I am cautiously optimistic, if not somewhat pseudo-excited to see what happens with this stuff, and I'll be talking about it a lot as we are leading into its release come this summer, and hopefully I can get my ass into Star Wars Celebration so I can actually, talk about it firsthand while I'm there. Anyway, your thoughts, your opinions, let me know down in the comments below. Again, I really appreciate everybody watching, everyone talking, everyone liking and subscribing, and I'll talk to you all later. Have a great day, and peace out.